Over the last couple months, the way that we do go-to-market strategies has completely changed. The old ways of doing it have become completely obsolete. And if you really want to keep beating your competition, you need to stay up to date with your strategies. And so in this video, I'll give you the exact two-tier process that I followed to get my company to over 7 figures in revenue that you can steal so that you have a strong go-to-market strategy so you start landing clients and have so much business you don't even know what to do with all of it. So let's get into it. So a lot of people when starting out either have no idea what to do or they end up just not doing anything because they think clients will just fall into their lap. But honestly, that could not be further from the truth. Let me just paint the picture as to why this is a problem. So just imagine you make the best freaking lemonade in the world and you have a lemonade stand where you sell your lemonade. What if you had that lemonade stand with the best lemonade in the world inside a prison cell? You think you'd make a lot of money? Odds are you probably won't. And so what we need to do is we need to build a killer up-to-date strategy to put your service in front of the right buyers. Okay, and so how do we do that? Obviously, we don't want to be selling our lemonade within a prison cell. So it really just depends on your unique situation and where you're currently at. If you're just getting started, you'll start with tier 1, but if you're above 30K a month, then I recommend you start off with tier 2. Tier 1 are going to be your quick, cost-efficient wins. Why? Because when we're starting out, that's exactly what we need. And so we want to make money fast and it not cost us a lot of money to actually make that cash. All right, so I've broken everything down to these 2 tiers like I was talking, okay? So the first thing that you really want to do, and I order them and actually put these in order in terms of how I think you should do these. So obviously tier 1, if you don't have a ton of cash, this is what you need to be doing. And then once you're at about like 20, 30, maybe even 50K a month, and that's when you can get into tier number 2. Essentially, once you have money, then you can move on to tier number 2 and you will see why here in a second. In other words, if you're bootstrapped, you're probably gonna want to start with tier 1. Now you could theoretically just skip all of tier 1 if you're VC backed or something like that, but for the most part, like I've never done that and I don't recommend it just because I don't like having someone like being able to tell me what to do. But like if you have some sort of funding, then you can just skip all of tier 1 and go straight into tier 2. But I'm assuming most people watching this video are going to be bootstrapped just like we are. And so tier 1 is where the meat and potatoes is. Okay. So the first thing in tier 1 that you want to look at is your existing network. Okay. So essentially what this means is you want to be doing warm outreach. You're going to be reaching out to everyone that follows you pretty much everywhere. You're going to be reaching out to everyone in your contact list that might need your service. And if they don't need your service, what you can do is essentially just ask them if they know anyone that might need your service. So instead of just asking like, hey, do you need this done? Or like, hey, I can do this for your business, or hey, I can do this for you, whatever. I would honestly just go the safer route and I would let them know like, hey, I'm just starting XYZ business. Do you know anyone that has a business that might need this service, right? And so the good thing about that is that if they need it, then they'll let you know and they'll be like, yeah, me. And if they don't, then they'll introduce you to someone. Essentially what you can do there is you just ask them to make like a 3-way text message. So just make a quick group chat. That makes it a lot more likely that the other person will actually reply because there's the third person, the person you asked initially. And you don't burn any bridges. You're not asking for anything. You're just asking to see if they know anyone, right? And so that makes it freaking amazing. So a great strategy to get a couple wins on the board. Your network, like, hey, do you know anyone that might be interested in XYZ? Works amazingly well. All right, so that's the first thing that you want to do, and that will potentially get your first couple sales. Now, existing network, YouTube, Instagram, etc. So essentially what I mean by this is, let's say maybe this is your second company, right? Or maybe you have been working on your personal brand and now you are building a company on top of that. You could obviously like leverage your existing newsletter. Maybe you have a YouTube channel. Maybe you have an Instagram with a ton of followers. Maybe you have a Twitter account with a ton of followers. Like that's what you need to be doing, okay? You need to be using essentially all your assets to go to market and to let people know about your new company. Now, the third one we have here is Dream 100 Outreach. Now, this is super, super key, and there's a bunch of videos on this channel for how you can do this exactly. But essentially, the concept of Dream 100 Outreach is you make a list of 100. It doesn't really need to be 100. It can be a lot less. It can be a lot more. It doesn't really matter. It's just kind of the concept. You want to make a list of your dream clients, okay? Dream client list, and then you're going to reach out to them everywhere. Like you're going to figure out what their emails are. You're going to figure out what their LinkedIns are. You're going to figure out what their Twitter handles are. If you can figure out their phone number, even better, right? So you're going to just hit them with a ton of value right off the bat so that they like have no reason to not work with you unless like they just don't have the pain point. But if they're a dream client, then they probably will have the pain point that you solve. Okay, so just you make a huge list of dream clients. So this means perfect clients, and then you just give them a ton of value. This will take a bunch of time, but it works really, really well. Now, if you want to do it in an even easier way, which won't take that much of your time, because I've seen people do Dream 100 outreach and then spend literally like 4 to 6 hours a day just doing this, spending like above an hour preparing everything for just one client, okay? And so what I recommend you do instead of the Dream 100 outreach or just doing this on top of Dream 100 outreach is doing DM outreach specifically through Drippy. And so what you can do here is you can just reach out to people, just letting them know that you've built something that is very, very valuable to them. Then once they say yes, then that's when you actually build the asset and then shoot it over, okay? Now, this will allow you to put out a ton more volume, number one, and you'll only be doing work for people that you actually want to work with and that have already expressed interest in working with you, okay? Or not working with you, but in receiving the value, which means that they have the pain point that you solve, which just makes it a lot more likely that they actually work with you, okay? So highly recommend you do that strategy. So Dream 100, yes. And then laid on top of that is going to be your DM outreach on Drippy. Drippy does Twitter DM outreach. Again, a bunch of videos on this channel for how to do this specifically. So just click around, and I'm also going to leave videos down in the description for Drippy itself. Another one that you don't want to miss out on is cold email, simply because it's just, again, you're adding layers, like you're stacking bricks. In my experience, DM outreach on Drippy just works a lot better than cold email and cold LinkedIn, but it doesn't hurt for you to just stack these on top of each other, okay? So I always recommend, like, yes, do Drippy, but then also do cold email, and then also do LinkedIn. In my experience, again, Twitter outreach just works better than these other ones, but it really just depends on your niche, so might as well just try them out. Now, on top of that, what you really want to be doing, and again, it's not like you just do one of these, it's you need to be doing all of these, okay, for your company to grow as quickly as possible. And these really are not expensive at all. I think that the most expensive one here is going to be cold email, so maybe you just skip out on that to begin with. Maybe first you collect some cash from your Drippy campaigns, from Dream 100 campaigns, and from your network campaigns, and then once you have a little bit more money, then you can add more fuel to the fire. You can either just increase the volume on Drippy, or you can just start stacking more stuff, which is where the cold email would come in. Now, on top of all this, I highly recommend that you're also doing organic content, not only on Twitter, but then also on LinkedIn. And what you can do with tools like Drippy, once again, is you start putting out organic content, and then once someone follows you, you can automatically send them a DM. Again, super easy to do with Drippy, bunch of links everywhere on this channel for how to do that. And so what that does is like, hey, okay, you attracted someone because of your content. And obviously your content needs to be around your core offering. You're not going to be posting like freaking puppy pictures and like that's not going to attract the right kind of audience. And so you need to be making posts that will attract your right audience, so that once they follow you, you can send them an automated DM. You can just hit them with something like, hey, first name, appreciate the follow, and then just ask them a qualifying question to see if they actually have the pain point that you solve. So for example, if we were doing this for outreach, I would say, hey, first name, thanks for the follow, and then I'd send them another message right after that, and then I'd say something along the lines of, hey, are you doing any outreach for company name right now? And that's it, right? Super simple question. You're not being salesy at all. They just followed you, so they've gotten value from you, and so they're way more likely to actually reply. So again, highly recommend you do organic Twitter, organic LinkedIn, and that you set up automated campaigns so that whenever someone follows you, you send them a DM, and you can do that through Drippy. Obviously, first link down in the description will get you a 7-day free trial. Now that is it for tier 1. These are going to be your quick wins that are going to be super cost efficient. Okay, so this is where I recommend everyone start off. Again, network, existing newsletters, Dream 100 outreach, Twitter DM outreach through Drippy, cold email, organic Twitter, and then organic LinkedIn as well. Okay, so now that we've got all that down, we can move on to tier number 2. Tier number 2 is like adding fuel to the fire. These are going to be quick, expensive wins, and you should be able to afford these after doing tier 1 for a couple of months. All right, so tier 2 wins, where do we start off? So number 1 is going to be YouTube organic. Now, There are ways to do YouTube organic in a cost-efficient way, which would be essentially you would build out your own thumbnails and you wouldn't have an agency edit your videos, and you just literally wouldn't have these videos edited unless you yourself are an editor or you have someone that can do it for super cheap, because editing videos is really expensive. And so what you can do to get around that is you can just record Loom videos, right? Or just sit down in front of the camera and then just talk without having too much editing needed. Right now, that is harder to do because with edits, obviously you can make mistakes. You're not going to have to start all over. But at the beginning, if you don't have a ton of cash, I highly just recommend that you do Loom videos, and then you do the 80-20 of getting a really high quality hook, creating yourself, like just learning how to do thumbnails, and then just having the content be a Loom video. And so that's what I recommend if you wanted to do YouTube organic in tier 1. YouTube organic is super, super efficient. Now, if you're in tier 2 already and you want to do this in a little bit more expensive way, then it's either you hire an editor in-house or you go for a YouTube agency. Now, not only is this going to be good for generating traffic, but once you start running ads, which we'll get into here in a second, you really do need to have a presence online, and YouTube is amazing at doing that. If you have videos that show off your expertise, whenever someone looks you up from an ad and they see that you've been posting videos for a year, 2 years, whatever, showcasing your expertise, they're going to be a lot more likely to trust you and actually buy. And then also for YouTube search, people will just look up, your ICP will literally just use YouTube as a search engine. So if there is a specific question that you typically get asked on sales calls, I recommend that you build videos around that, because odds are people will look up those questions on YouTube or on Google, and YouTube search will come up pretty high up on that list. And so you always want to be present wherever your ICP is. Now, number 2 is organic on Instagram. Okay. Now, again, this is a little bit more expensive if you're editing videos, but this is mainly for ads, right? Because you're going to want to do Facebook and Instagram ads. And so really you need your profile on Instagram to look really, really good. Nowadays, you just do it through a bunch of reels, bunch of short form content. And so that's why it's a tier 2, because it is a little bit more expensive to do, but it's super, super effective as well. Now, number 3 is ad funnels. Okay. Like, this is where it starts getting expensive. It really just depends on what kind of strategies you're running. But if you're trying to sell a high ticket service via ads, your customer acquisition cost is going to be like pretty high. It's going to be like around the 1K range. And so you need to be able to spend that amount of money on a consistent basis. And if you don't have cash, then it's going to be really hard. And if this is your first time doing it, you're not going to be able to spend like $200 a day, which is really where you want to be able to just start off on ads. And so this I recommend, once you can like essentially just burn $6,000 a month on ads and not see any return, because at the beginning, you're probably not going to be very profitable unless you know what you're doing. But if it's the first time doing it, odds are you're not going to know what you're doing. And so here it's either you just spend money to learn this skill. You can obviously also go on YouTube and kind of search up how to do it. There's no like really, really good guides out there. How I learned how to do it was by paying someone a ton of money to teach me how to do it. And then we ended up not wasting a ton of money at the beginning. But that's why ad funnels are in tier 2. Okay. These are expensive to run and you need to know what you're doing, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're literally just going to burn cash. But if you have something that works, then this is going to scale your business a ton. Okay. Now, number 3, test newsletter ads if applicable. Okay, so if you know that there's newsletters that your ICP reads on a very consistent basis, just reach out to the owners or just reply to one of their newsletters and just see how expensive ads on there would be. Ask for some case studies to see their click-through rates and how many signups other people that have sponsored their newsletters typically get, because these can be really good ways to get yourself in front of your audience. You just need to make sure that you're actually paying the right people, because newsletter ads tend to be really expensive. So just keep that in mind. Number 5, we have podcast appearances. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. If you can land really good podcasts, like those are going to be insane boosts to your revenue, especially reason being, people that watch podcasts or that are diehard fans of a specific podcast have spent so much time with the host that they essentially just trust anyone that jumps onto their podcast, because they trust that the host is going to get high quality people on there. And so if the host that has a ton of credibility invites you to their podcast, so somehow you manage to get into a podcast and the host is like, everyone loves the host, because whatever you say, people will believe because they trust whoever invited you on. Okay. So they can be super powerful, but you do need to either just have great relationships in this space, or you can also hire some sort of media company to help you land these podcasts, or you can simply just reach out to them. Like, use a tool like Drippy to reach out to these guys, reach out to them manually, whatever you can, just figure out a way to hop on podcasts, and that's going to be a complete game changer. Or you can also just sponsor podcast, but again, that's a little bit more expensive. So that is number 5. Number 6 is going to be partnerships. So partnerships, these are again kind of like sponsoring like other people. Like partnerships, I mean like sponsoring YouTube creators, which we'll get into here shortly, influencers. But this can be, again, a great way to just leverage someone else's trust by paying them. Okay. And obviously you want to have a good product, because if it's not a good product, then odds are they won't want to be sponsored by you. But these can be super key, because you're essentially just leveraging someone else's audience. Super great way to grow a company. However, again, can be really expensive depending on the type of influencers that you go for. So number 7, influencers, partnerships. With influencers, what I mean by this is mostly just kind of like short form content influencers, but partnerships, what I mean by partnerships is more so kind of like the bigger guys, right? So going after someone that has a course that can roll out your service or your tool to their whole like community, right? So that's a great partnership. Or maybe someone that has a very big YouTube audience, you'll pay them to make a video talking about your product or service, whatever. And then influencers, it's very similar, but influencers, just in my experience, tend to be more for like short form content stuff. And then lastly, we have affiliates. So building out an affiliate program, the reason why it's in tier 2 is because it's not only expensive, but also takes a bunch of time if you want to do it right. Typically, it involves having someone that is just like solely taking care of all your affiliates and taking care of the affiliate program. And so that's why I have it here. It is very expensive, very time consuming. Because again, in order for it to be a really good affiliate program, it's going to take a bunch of money, and it's going to take a bunch of your time or someone else on your team that is going to cost you money. So that's why I have it here. Very powerful, but I don't recommend you start off with this. And so that's pretty much it. Those are the 2 tiers that I typically do and what I typically recommend whenever anyone asks me how to start scaling their company. Now, this applies very well for SaaS companies and for agencies as well. And if you want access to the software Drippy that I mentioned a couple times in this video, first link down below the description will get you a 7-day free trial. Not only will this allow you to reach out to your target audience, but it will also allow you to automatically DM anyone that starts following you on Twitter, which can be very powerful. And if you want to learn the ins and outs of outreach, click this video on screen for a full masterclass. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you there.